For the weekly final,
제일 어려운 단계는 이미 거쳤다고
what is your determination for the weekly final?
좋은 모습을 보여드릴 수 있을 것 같습니다.
I think we've already went through the most difficult stage and we'll try to show our best performance in the Super Bowl.
네, 이렇게 해서
Under the Super Bowl.
14번째 매치에서 승리한 팀은 바로 KPI 게이밍이었습니다. 저는 실전 선수와 함께 인터뷰 나눠봤고요. 잠시 후 15번째 매치를 준비하고
And that was KPI after their victory. They move on to the weekly final. And look, let's be honest, like we need to see something change from them once they get into the point format in the weekly final. If they're able to do that, great. But really, Petrichor Road stole the limelight a little bit there, Chunks. I mean, there's no two ways about it. Yes, they basically spent most of the game playing tower defense, but you don't get to 19 kills because you do that and nothing else. They executed every single hold brilliantly.
Yeah, look, Petrichor Road did really well being able to defend that compound, and to actually get out of there with 2 players up with so many different squads pushing in is really impressive to see. I know that Blamus, the assistant coach for Virtus Pro, actually tweeted out a screenshot of the replay of the match, and you could see all of the dead bodies on the floor, and it was so impressive to see the fact that they were able to defend and clean up with so many chicken dinners. And I do want to say something real quick. I've been catching a lot of heat from chat for saying that KPI maybe didn't deserve the game. I maybe phrased that one wrong, so I do want to apologize. Look, they have been sending it to the center every game. It was only a matter of time now till they got themselves a chicken dinner. My worry now, though, is that teams are going to get a read on it going into the later weekly survivals and then be able to actually get aggressive onto KPI and shut them down. So I do want to see a bit more of an aggressive playstyle come out for them, especially this weekend at the weekly finals, where, you know, you have to go for those kill points, which is something they have been able to do. I think it's the approach we've talked about a lot with ENTs, as an example, where you can either play specifically for the win, or you try and play your regular game and then let the wins come hand in hand. And it feels like right now KPI have 2 different playstyles as opposed to some other teams that only have 1.
And to be fair, you are absolutely spot on there because Saga, I think both of you mentioned it during the game. KPI got themselves into a good endgame position, but Na'Vi in the mid game, and like there were a couple of close brushes with death where in the weekly final, a team hungry for kills would just push that and try and get the squad wipe. So to be fair to Chunks, I think he's spot on there.
I think the one thing that we especially need to point out when it comes to particularly KPI, but also teams like ENTs that tend to have a very more defined play style. ENTs, you know, we heard the interview from Squeaky, they're looking to change things up very slightly, but we're in this part of the tournament with an evolving, constantly rotating lobby. So it's different teams every time you hop back into the server. They all have different play styles. So you can't really prepare too much for exactly who you're going to be up against without knowing who's going to be getting the wins, which is frankly impossible to do. But once you've now qualified for the weekly finals, particularly if you're a team that qualified early, the likes of MCG, Gen G, and Fury is the first 3 teams to qualify, they can just sit back and watch how all of these other teams are playing. They can do their preparation knowing exactly who their competitors are going to be over this weekend for a 10-game period, which means that you can identify some of these more habitual instincts of some of these teams, like for example KPI going towards the center. Whether that will change up on a different format, we will have to sort of wait and see, but in particular you can now go back to the ranking decision when they were playing in the super settings, try and identify some of the key features of their style of gameplay and look to make plans around it. That is something you can do knowing the lobby that you'll be up against in a more consistent path.
And now we have Game Home entering the lobby. So we've got Game Home and Sonics left in the final 2 matches of weekly survival. Chunks, what do we think about Game Home?
Game Home, really promising team. Obviously, they weren't the first seed coming into this. It was Unicorn Phoenix, but because of visa issues, they weren't able to make it through. So a very promising roster. And I will just say, look, 2 games and still 2 NA teams. The Americas' hopium is alive and well.
Well, let's see if Game Home can make an impact on this lobby. Toby, Xenox, let's go to match 15.
Thank you so much, Joe. Yep, 2 more games left to play here at the PGC 2021 Weekly Survival matches, of course, brought to you by Alienware and Toomey and Xenox. Oh, Xenox, what are we in for with just 2 games to play? Is the chaos gonna commence, or team's gonna try and play it slow and safe now?
Yeah, especially off the back of KPI's victory as well, and the way that they were able to sort of play that more survival-centric approach to get the win, and it was completely deserved as well. They had a very strong position at the Woods, didn't really need to do much more from there. So honestly, it does obviously come down to the circles and a little bit of luck here and there, but I think when you see Petrichor Road get 19 kills, don't get the win, it probably makes you a little bit hesitant to go out there guns blazing. So you need a good mix though. You need a very good mix of both.
One thing that I don't feel like KPI got enough credit for during that game, because yes, I mean they had the east side of the hill there in the end game, and they were allowed to play pretty calm for the most part because no one was aggressing on them. But that's how they got to that position, not specifically the spot on the map, but to be in that situation. Remember, they pushed up. They were the ones to aggress onto Na'Vi when they had a two-way split. They said, Na'Vi, if you want to be around here, you better take a fight to us. They killed 2 of them, forced them back off. They only got to sit in that position and quote-unquote do nothing, although they were doing quite a bit. They only got to be in that position because they dared to aggress earlier when everyone else kept backing off. Yes. And that's what I've been saying the whole time. If you don't dare to make space for yourself in the early to mid game in these sort of edge positions, you will get smothered. And by doing so, if there's a team that can do it from the side, being KPI in this last game, we see that last game here, if they can do that, the other teams are going to be kind of bunched up in small packs where they can just third party. That's exactly what they did. They played a perfect winner chicken in a format game, and they should be rewarded for it. And they win.
And obviously for Petrichor Road, it's not as if they did anything wrong either. They just basically dealt with the cards that were given to them. In this case, a couple of free kills onto PPL at the very beginning. That was the first of many pushes onto this compound that Petrichor Road had to defend, and yet somehow still finish second. It's just a credit to the strength of this roster. Then came along You Happy. It wasn't the most clean crash onto the compound, but still, Axelef does a really good job, closes the door. Doesn't quite get away as quick as he would have liked, but then has help from Mill. And it is a very big thing to sort of touch on here, though. But for Petrichor Road, this was a very strong position to hold, and they needed to be aggressive, and they were in these fights. They were constantly looking at these windows, making it very difficult to get pushed onto the compound. It was pretty much center of the circle, and they played it very, very well. Sure. Did they get unfortunate? I don't even think so. I think it's just the nature of the position that they were holding was a position that everyone wanted.
They, let alone the fact that they took out, 10 players before they took their first casualty is, it should, I mean, I say it should never happen. They make it happen, so of course it should, and it did. But replay all those fights 15 times, and that's probably the only time you'll see them take a single casualty. They played that one to perfection in terms of preventing teams from taking over your compound. The way that they are like, Damu upstairs isolating the staircase, making sure that he could buy enough time for his teammates to come help. Everything played exactly like it should, but most likely we wouldn't see that happening in the same fashion again because, PUBG, 16 billion different things you have to take into consideration.